I've just seen a very young looking, actually, compared to when I've arrived. You know, when you think you know people because you see them online and things like that. And Bjorn Lomberg, good to meet you, Bjorn.
Likewise, hi.
So just give us some reflections. Yesterday we heard a whole session on energy, and the day before a bit of it. It's a big part of the discussion about some of the values and principles, the issues of net zero and what that means. You've been someone who's been very instrumental in how some people think in the world about some of these issues. What do you think, what for you has shone out, and what have you thought about what's gone on here?
Well, so if you ask anyone, they always think their own topic is the most important thing. So obviously I'm going to say energy and climate is an incredibly important thing. I think the most important thing for most people, both in the rich world and the poor world, is to make sure that we don't stop progress, that we actually keep developing and we have economic growth, because again, economic growth allows you to do a lot of the things you want to do. And unfortunately, with our current climate policies, we have driven down our economic growth dramatically. We're seeing that in Europe, which is basically stagnating with just maybe 1% growth per year per person. This is not sustainable. That's actually not a good world. And of course, that's why both China, India, and Africa are not going to follow this example. We need to find a smarter way to fix climate change. So it's a real problem. But right now, we're fixing it incredibly expensive. You know, here in Britain over the last 20 years, you've seen your electricity prices in real terms for households and industries triple. Most of this is because of global warming policies. Not all of it, but most of it. This is unsustainable. And so what you need to do is to find a way that you say, yes, there is a problem with climate, but we're going to do it smarter, we're going to do it cheaper. And that's about innovation. So find ways to eventually get us off fossil fuels and get us off emitting CO2, because it's a real problem. Then make sure we also focus on adaptation, because that's one of the cheapest and most effective ways to deal with climate in the short run. And then make sure you get back on growth, because growth is what's going to fix a lot of problems, both for climate, but also, of course, for all the other problems we have, like defense and healthcare and education, and all the other challenges.
It does seem like some of the, you say, you know, get onto some of these other energy sources, and you know, I think many people are very keen on that. We saw France 60% nuclear, Sweden 30%, I think. But why, in terms of fossil fuels and carbon? What's the succinct point? Why would you say we need to get off them? Because often we're told we're getting off them, and then we have lithium batteries or we have electric car, and we see that furnaces and making those things and shipping the energy when it's meant to be a low carbon footprint end up being more of that anyway. But what's the reason from your point of view?
So the short version is climate is a problem. We know that from a lot of science, but also from the best climate economists, including William Nordhaus, who's the only guy who got the Nobel Prize in climate economics, that climate cost unmitigated will cost us, say, 2 to 3% by the end of the century per year. So not nothing. It's not 100% or anywhere near 100%. If we can find a solution that will cost us, say, 1% of GDP to avoid a 3% problem for our kids and grandkids, that's a good deal. Unfortunately, right now, we're spending 10% to avoid a tiny bit of 3% problem. That's a dumb idea. And so it's about being smart. So I'm not saying get off fossil fuels right now, because that's going to be very, very costly, which is what we're experiencing right now. We need to find cheap energy sources that will allow us to eventually do so. One example would be fourth generation nuclear. So right now, nuclear, especially in the rich world, is very expensive. There's a lot of reason for that. One of the ways to do that is to get fourth generation nuclear, where you basically get a registration for the prototype, and then you just produce 100,000 of them, and they're all authorized, and you basically just put them out everywhere, and they could be incredibly cheap. Now, remember, that's what they told us about the other three generations, so we still want to see if that comes true. But that's how you drive development. You find a way to make sure we have lots of energy today, also get lots of energy for tomorrow, but eventually get it in a way that also fixes climate change.
Just basically, what are your thoughts on what's happening in America right now and what that means internationally?
So there's a lot of things happening in the U.S. That's a very unspecific question. I think there's a lot of people with a lot of political views, but I think Trump is happening. I didn't vote for him. I don't think any of us, you're not from the U.S. either, right? So we didn't vote for him. He's there. He's doing some things that are pretty scary, but he's also doing some things that are incredibly good. I think, basically shaking up the establishment tree and saying, let's do this smarter, better, more effective, could be an incredible boon for the world. It may also go terribly, terribly wrong. I'm hoping that it can be a way to have a wake-up call for our somewhat stale bureaucracies and all the inefficient policies that we've had. So it's there. Let's make the best of it, and one way to do that is to keep focusing on saying, let's do the smartest things first.
Bjorn Lomberg, thank you very much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.